In the news this week, Norway and the sleepy town of Arendal. Once a year, this town's peace is shattered, as it was this year, by Andreas Uglund, the local driver who set a remarkable record by taking 2 events in 2 separate classes, 6-litre and the classic Offshore Class 1, the first round of the European Championships. We'll have a full report. This week we travel to Norway, to Arendal, for their round of the European 6-litre Offshore Championships, and a great victory for the Uglund team. The Italians were here in force, and good weather was predicted for what has become a very popular event and a regular event in offshore terms. For both the 6-litre and the 4-litre classes, a good entry list, and the course this year set around a large island just off the coast outside of the town of Arendal itself. While the lightweight catamarans had the advantage at the outset, it wasn't long before Andreas Uglund and Jan Hillstadt were challenging in the turbocharged, Butzi-powered monohull. The big problems came when the smaller catamarans turned around the northern edge of the island and headed into the rougher seas, as you can see here as this catamaran twists and turns. Then we make a big leap across the Atlantic to Augusta on the Savannah River, a regular event now in the IOGP 2-litre American Championships. Bill Siebold still fighting hard on what is now Arendal in Norway, a classically pretty Norwegian town on the east coast of this Scandinavian country. Norway has long been associated with powerboat racing. Arendal has become a regular event on the calendar. Boating is in everyone's blood out here, and it seems a logical place to hold a round of a championship. Today we're going to focus on the 6-litre European Championships, and prior to the event, a parade through the town to introduce everyone to the boats and the boats to their local environment. Perhaps one of the most popular entrants, Andreas Ove Uglund, with his throttleman Jan Hillstadt, also a Norwegian. All the locals turning out to have a good look at these spectacular boats. The Italian entry, Mario Invernizzi and Pietro Frassoni, with an outboard-driven catamaran, and the boats all lined up on the quayside here as the locals take the opportunity to have a good look at the competition that's going to take place on their local waters. This very unusual boat, running in the 4-litre class, comes from Sweden. It's a monohull with a large wing section at the rear. Unusual. Will it be competitive? Only time will tell. Powered by a 310 horsepower V8 Evinrude. The Italians preparing their boat, 2 Mercury outboards on the back of this catamaran, which could be very, very competitive if the waters stay calm. Inboards, much the most popular form of power when it comes to the larger classes, but as soon as you move down into 6 litres and less, outboards become very much the order of the day, certainly in the petrol-driven classes. From France comes the Miss Cat skater hull, running under the numerals S10, Thierry Raspeau and Laurent Place in a Mercury-powered catamaran hull. The skater, of course, now extremely popular after the great successes in 1992 of the Class 1 hulls, both in the European Championships and in the Worlds. Very famous man in the 4-litre class, the Frenchman Yann Caderet. Despite his disability of being confined to a wheelchair, it doesn't stop him being a top-class powerboat driver. Highly respected, much feared, very capable. The water's calm here on the inner shore section of the course. And this is a very different form of competition altogether. Running in the 6-litre class, the turbocharged, diesel-powered Andreas Uglund and Jan Hillstadt monohull. A highly modified boat, and more of that a little later. But for now, all the boats being launched into the waters here in Arendal. You can see the level of preparation that's been going on. Great attention to detail. A very important race, this. The XR2 Mercuries, and there are two of them, 2.4 litres in each engine there. Local drivers, Norwegians, Tommy Stenstrud, Frank Mørn in D59, a 26-foot Hydrocat powered by two 190 horsepower Mercury engines. And the rest of the boats being launched off the quayside and into the water. S33, a very competitive boat, performed extremely well in Guernsey last year, introduced there as a style outside of Scandinavian waters for the first time. Tom and Kim Mayer in their hydrolift, and this is the monohull of Andreas Uggland that's really got tongues wagging this weekend.
Well, we gambled a little bit when we made the boat, and the designer Geir Arendal readily admits that. And I think we had to make some modifications because it was jumping a little too much, you know, when we were testing. And we were rigging it down at Fabio Buzi's workshop, and we decided to cut it basically in two, add a little piece and bend it down a little bit, and it did the trick. It worked very well, and now it's performing very well, as perhaps you saw yesterday. Yeah.
So the monohull lowered into the water. The Norwegian flag flying proudly on the top as the twin turbocharged Buzi is fired up. Arendal is very much the home water of Andreas Uggland. Gianfranco, the crew chief, warming up this engine, which is expected to do so well here this weekend. In goes Andreas, slips down inside the cockpit. Very similar to his Class 1 environment, the controls and the layout quite similar, although no lid on the top. It's an open cockpit. The safety regulations and recommendations not quite the same in this 6-litre class as they are in Class 1. A smooth sound as the twin turbos whir into action, and the boat heads out ready for the start of the race over to the muster area just to our right-hand side. Andreas very confident of doing well here. Hillstadt, you can see, sitting a little higher to give him a better view over the top of Uggland. So the local men on their home waters, how will they fare here this weekend against the catamarans? Half of the course very protected. The catamarans will be high speed. The outer section of the course much rougher out on the seaward side of the island. As the boats now line up behind the pace boat and head across in front of the pits. A great sight always, the start of an offshore race. A roar as the engines fire into life and carry these boats past us and out, down, underneath the huge bridge which connects the island to the mainland just a little further away. Miss Cat just in the lead. The Italians and Invernizzi in second, but only just because the monohull of the Ugglands, Baby Uno, has already moved up into second place. And look at this, with tremendous control of the monohull on these very calm waters. Miss Cat under pressure. The French team know that they've got an enormous job on here to hold off the attentions of Uggland and Hillstadt in the monohull, but they're doing extremely well as they head underneath the spectacular bridge that connects Trumoy Island to the mainland. And there you can see, looking back behind us, the rest of the pack fighting to catch up with these two that have roared away into the lead. Uggland in S90, this specially modified boat built up here in Scandinavia, but as the designer recognized, not a good design, not competitive, certainly not producing the results that Andreas Uggland wanted from it. And so it was shipped down to the Buzi yard down in Italy, and he literally cut this boat in half. Added a section to it, put the twin turbocharged diesels in the back, or diesel should I say, just the one engine driving a single prop. You can see the trim tabs there very clearly, maintaining the angle of the boat. Andreas looking up at the helicopter. He's even got time to say, give us a friendly wave hello as they head now, you can see, into the slightly rougher waters, into the exposed channel as they head off to the northern end of Tremoy Island and out into the open seas, but still doing tremendously well. The French team in their Mercury-powered catamaran, they too in the safety cockpit built onto the top of this skater hull. And the make skater, of course, well known in offshore racing now, very popular in the large and the middle ranking classes, and you can see why, because they're really doing tremendously well here, competitive with a monohull that's very much in its home racing conditions as they head out around the mark at the northern end of the island and away south, the charge out towards the open sea. The catamaran already bouncing around all over the place. The French team having tremendous trouble trying to maintain pace over the rougher waters. Past us goes the 4-litre hydrolift of the Norwegian team. The Italians in Invernizzi, and as soon as they round this mark, they're in all sorts of trouble. Jan Cadere in Flying Oyster. Great credit to this team, and particularly to Jan Cadere. He's sitting closest to us, driving this offshore racing boat and paralyzed from the waist downwards in a car accident some years ago. A great demonstration of what can be achieved, and tremendous difficulty for the team now in the rougher waters. You can see the gear cases of those Mercury engines tearing at the water as the skater hull, and this of course is another skater hull with a more open cockpit, as the skater hull fights with the racing conditions here. D59, Kepi Norge, the local Norwegian team in the 4-litre class, so two 2-litre Mercuries with fuel injection giving them the power, riding with the throttle man behind the driver. All these teams taking very different choices as to configuration, choice of hull, combination of engines, type of propeller. And the man in the back hanging on for dear life down there, and I'm not surprised, because these racing conditions are very, very tricky. It looks sunny, it may look calm from up here, but believe me, they have got very challenging racing conditions at the moment. The Italians in the 6-litre class, this beautifully prepared hull, the Invernizzi hull, very much modelled on the Butzi design, which was used to great effect in the 2-litre class of racing with a diesel-powered boat when diesel had a power advantage back in the mid-80s. So Norway in the lead, France in second place, the Italians in third. Join us after this break here on PowerBoat World.
Tonight at 10:30, the hard-hitting
to PowerBoat World, and you join us here in Arendal in Norway for a round of the 6-litre offshore powerboat European Championships in 1993. A contrasting battle with Norway and the home waterman Andreas Ove Ugland and his teammate Jan Hilstadt down here below us in the bright red Baby Uno monohull in the lead. The French team of Thierry Raspeau and Laurent Place in second, and in third the Italians Mario Invernizzi and Pietro Frassoni in their Mercury-powered Invernizzi hull. But it's Sea-Tech and diesel power that's really doing the business here today. as Andreas pilots this superb boat around the island of Tromoy. The sea rougher out here, the swells longer between each jump. Just a single propeller providing all the power in the water, so the choice of that propeller has been absolutely critical in the decision for racing conditions here today. The whir of those twin turbos as the Monahal makes its way back towards us one last time, past timing control, our helicopter flying just above it to bring you those spectacular racing pictures out at sea as Andreas Ugland and Jan Hilstadt pass the checkered flag point, pass timing control, and take this 6-litre European Championship event. What a great day for these two in front of their home crowd, a very proud Norwegian crowd. Jan and Andreas onto the #1 spot, the winner's podium. A great day for them, you can see. Smiles all round for these two. They've been racing together for a long time. Andreas says they hardly bother to talk to each other in the cockpit, despite the communication systems anymore, because they know instinctively what's required, and the crowd loving every moment of this great home victory. Next week, can the same team make it a 1-2 on the same course as they try their hand at the Class 1 European Championships and the opening round? In the meantime, a close look at the controls of this superb racing Monahal.